the below, so for male, below 18, you have 134. Above 18, that's men, 1,078. And for female, below 18, you have 66. And above 18 years, you have 176. That's a huge disparity between the deaths on the road in terms of gender. And total, persons injured, we have 8,188. So this is thanks to information from the Motor Traffic and Transport Department of the Ghana Police Service. But clearly you can see an increase just for the first half of the 2 years, January to June 2020 and January to June 2021. Yes, back in the studio, I'm joined by Kwame Kodua Etuahene. He's the head of regulations, inspections and compliance at the National Road Safety Authority, formerly commissioned. Now you're an authority. Yeah. Good to have you in the studio, Kwame. It's been forever.
Good to see you.
It's been forever. Yeah. And we also have Superintendent Alexander Obeng, Director in charge of Education and Research at the MTTD, Motor Traffic and Transport Department, formerly MTTU. So these two gentlemen have a lot of power, and I must say welcome. It's been a long time. I don't know if Alex, you remember me. When I started my journalism career, road safety was my beat, and I would bug the two of you severally for stories and statistics. So it's good to catch up. But thank you. We'll also be joined later by the general manager for VIP Transport Company Limited, Ernest Manso, and industrial relations officer for the GPRTU, Ibrahim Abbas Moro. That will be later. But gentlemen, good afternoon and thank you for joining us. I'll start with the statistics that we just looked at. And Kwame, this is a conversation that you continue to have. Why do we keep seeing increasing cases of road crashes and deaths and injuries on the road?
Father, thank you very much. I think that the reasons these incidents occur are fairly known, and in spite of the efforts that go to turn the curve down from all of us, including our stakeholders, we continue to have a rise in these numbers. The level of indiscipline has been on a rise. Much as the number of indices. So we often say that traffic crashes is a consequence of vehicular movement, and every year we add on to the numbers. This year, I'm certain that by the close of the year, we would have added close to 10 to 15% of new vehicles onto our roads. Our vehicular population is going up as much as the population, but we cannot say the same for the relative increase in the road network. But that said, if we were to have a certain level of disciplined road user class, in spite of the steady rise in the numbers, we should be able to contain the situation. A lot has gone into creating awareness on the key contributory factors, the reason that these crashes occur. And today, I think if we went out of the studio to engage road users, I'm certain in my mind that 8, if not 9 out of 10 road users will return positive outcomes on account of the knowledge they have to bring the numbers down. Unfortunately, the same guy who is knowledgeable, who will be very much law-abiding in the next environment, for one reason or the other, when he gets onto our road, he has more than enough motivation to indulge in all the negative road user behavior that will create a bit of problem for society. So I think that on the one hand, even though there's a relative increase in the vehicular numbers, the ordinary road user have grown to be very indisciplined on our roads. Beyond that, there are also a number of institutions that may have a role to play. most of whom are either private or public. Regrettably, even though we all put in the best of efforts, a number of these institutions also go to sleep on their job. So you look at indiscipline from two perspectives. Indiscipline on the point of the road user, and indiscipline or irresponsibility on the part of institutions. And the two conspire to create the sort of discomfort that we have. Okay. And we must all do well to try to keep them under control.
Okay, so you allude to three major concerns. You talk about indiscipline. You also talk about ignorance of road safety standards, but you do make the case of the increasing numbers of vehicles on our road. DSP, I'll come to you for just a quick breakdown of the statistics that we just shared. We're looking at 2020 and 2021. You can see from the statistics that almost 2,000 increase in the total number of reported accidents. When we come to commercial vehicles and also private vehicles and motorcycles, you see the increase. Can you explain the reason for the distinction? Why is it important that you do in the records that you put together, you do the distinction between commercial vehicles, private vehicles, and motorcycles?
All right. Thank you for the opportunity. And it's clear with this data that as road users, as a country, we need to take a second look at our responsibilities regarding vehicle ownership, handing same over, its use, its occupancy, and the road use in general by pedestrians in terms of how we walk along and across roads. Because if you look at the data, it seems that there is a surge and that we all have road safety problems, and therefore with inadequate solution we need to enhance it so that we can confront it frontally and solve some of this problem. Because well over, it is agreed that these road safety problems, as we have shared them out this afternoon, are preventable, and therefore there lie solutions. But we must ask ourselves whether we are working to eliminate same. Having said that, any country, any institution that seeks to support road safety has to look critically at the data. And the data is very important. And I believe well over, experts have agreed that road safety intervention is data-led. And therefore, when you look at our data, if you look at the previous ones, you will see that there is a complete paradigm shift, because the devil lies in the details. Mm-hmm. And therefore, it's always important that road traffic data must come out with all the variables that interplay on the road. I.e., we are aware that at least globally, there are three interactive risk factors that lead to crashes, whether the human being, whether the road, or the vehicle. And therefore, if you look at the vehicle, we have gone beyond just a vehicle to look at the road user class. And at least on this sheet, we have categorized incidents of preventable crashes by vehicle type. And therefore, we're looking at, in terms of use, therefore we're looking at commercial vehicles, and we have categorized all commercial vehicles under that. We have also looked at vehicles that are registered with private number plates, with all its categories under private vehicles, and we have looked at motorcycles.
But between the types, commercial and the private,
yes,
it is interesting, because ordinarily people would expect that there will be more cases with commercial drivers, because we are looking at the kind of driving we see the truck drivers and the taxi drivers. You would expect that somebody who is driving a private vehicle will be more responsible on the road.
I think that in terms of its pronouncement, in terms of its use, presence, you see more of private registered vehicles on well roads. However, when it comes to crashes, definitely many of such will be involved in crashes. However, when you are dealing with casualties, you observe that more commercial vehicles are high occupancy. Some of them are lorries, omnibuses, intercity buses.
Okay.
Some are trotters, as we may call it, among others. And therefore, they may be fewer, they make more trips, they are engaged in commercial activities, and though fewer may be crashed, there will be more casualties. And that is why it's important that we look at it in that context in terms of casualties.
Okay.
And I mean, those who are fatally injured and those who go home with morbidity injuries. And that is what we see. And therefore, on this data, of the 1,454 that have died between January and June this year, you observe that though more of the vehicles that were involved in crashes were private, one death is one too many. You observe that only 314 have been killed by private vehicles, though many. Of the fewer commercial vehicles, amounting to 4,948, you observe that 518 have been killed out of the 1,454. Same time, of the fewer motorcycles that were involved in these crashes, which stands at 3,157, it has decimated 622 lives on our roads. And that is the meaning that road safety advocates, transport operators, road safety managers, journalists, traffic law enforcement officers, policymakers, among others, play values on these data when it is segregated into these details. And clearly, when you look on this data, it is showing that the user class that are at risk are commercial and then private, and then motorcycle. And that motorcycle, if you look at the trend, it seems to be in the lead killer. Not long ago, of 100 deaths, we could only attribute 10 to 15 to motorcycle-related crashes and injuries. Currently, with this data, from last year on to this time, it's obvious that whilst at that time pedestrians were leading, now motorcycle is leading with at least of any 100 fatalities or 100 deaths on our road through road crashes. Motorcycle alone is claiming about 47. You get what I'm talking about. And from 16, let's put it in there, to 47 out of 100 deaths.
Percent.
Yeah.
Or out of, yes.
Yeah, I want to put it in a very, then you've got these percentages, yes, but I want to use the absolute to make it clear with the data. Because with 6 months on, 622 Ghanaians have been killed through motorcycle-related crashes and deaths. And it's obvious, like every month, about 100 persons are killed. Therefore, this day, after our discourse, if history is anything to go by, motorcycle alone will kill more than 3 persons on our roads in Ghana. Previously, it was not like that. And that is
what's accounting
the import and the ramification.
What are you reading behind the figures? What's accounting for this? Has it got to do with the unlawful commercialization?
Obviously, as Kwame said, the data is no different from what pertains us with that. Basically, 3 factors are responsible.
Okay.
Whether the road the vehicle or the human. And the data around the world and in Ghana shows that of any 100 crashes, you always will attribute about 90 to human negligence. And the human negligence goes beyond only individual. In Ghana and most third world countries, you are looking at laxity. You are looking at the inactivity of the state in also contributing in removing certain problems that exist within the road safety management stream. And that is why when you look at the just launched 2020 to 2030 in the SDG, the Decade of Action for Road Safety that's been launched by UN, it says that with the challenges that the member countries are facing, we should be careful not to attribute it to the road user, okay? And placing responsibility on the state to come up with certain interventions, because road safety is activity or intervention based. I.e., it uses the safe system approach, which thrives on 5 principles. One that it hits is that the road safety managers should not be responsive to when the last crash occurred, so that you rush there to say, what happened? Let's go and solve the problem. No, look at the system. And so Ghana, when you look at our system, we have certain thieving problems, and we need to tackle it head on. One has to do with what are we doing with the motorcycle problem that confront us.
But tell us first, the motorcycle problem. Is it too many?
Yes, motorcycle has a big problem. Don't we see that all of a sudden Ghanaians were prohibited from owning it, using it as riders or pillion riders, and to carry fare-paying passengers and all that, and it is prohibited. Is it not clear that that law has been desecrated and across the country, and we are observing? And out of that, so many problems are also coming with it, with the attendant.
Why isn't that where MTCD comes in with enforcement?
I'm saying that we have to take a look at it, because it looks as if it is all over. Studies have shown, and it is getting out of hand. The behavior is becoming, with the existing tools that the law has, is not able to tackle it head on. It's very difficult to enforce it, and therefore you don't throw your hands into the. Every state will then take a second look at the policy, because it looks as if the prohibition didn't work, and that one goes beyond police. That don't use it to carry fare-paying passengers. People are using. What is
but
it?
But narrowing it down beyond the state's failure, narrowing it down, what couldn't the police do?
When you look at it as it is, if you say use, don't use it to carry fare-paying passengers. It is because the vehicle has open sides, and using it to carry fare-paying passengers, there lies dangers, because the person will have to increase speed, might have to neglect road laws that are safety-oriented, increase speed, make more trips, make money. In the process, they violate so many laws, and any slight rollover, because it is a vulnerable vehicle, it has open sizes, it becomes fatal and serious. And the country has not been able to tackle using it for commercial day use, because it is difficult enforcing that particular aspect of use. How do you determine? Because
the lines are blurred. It's difficult to tell who is a pillion or who is.
How do you determine private from commercial when you see somebody as a pillion, for example? And meanwhile, there are systemic challenges that are push factors, for Ghanaians to go and have it and use it as such across the country. And when you say across the country, in the rural state, in the urban environment, and then in the farm state and rural, everywhere, motorcycle use has become like a panacea for our public transport. And that is where the danger lies. So when you have
Because there would appear to be a certain failure of the public transportation system. There's lots of traffic, the roads are not in good condition, so that becomes an alternative. That's what I'm saying,
and then it is not policing that you look at the system. Again, there is another problem like this that we have to look at. Because that one may be motorcycle. What about highway? High occupancy buses are on our road network 24/7. Particularly at night. And I think you attest that when you are on the N1 from Accra to Aflao, Accra to Cape Coast, Accra to Kumasi at night, and you are candid, you then see the problems that confront particularly the commercial transport operations, i.e. the high occupancy commercial transport operations, and then the transit goods carriers, that at night, where to sleep becomes a problem. The roads are dark. The roads are single carriage. Some portions are not marked. Some portions are riddled with potholes, among others. And obstructions left, right, center. Meanwhile, our policy is to dualize. For how long shall we carry on with these single carriages, which are itself traps, which also are riddled with traps of broken down vehicles?
So there are lots of obstructions on the road. Yes, I want to bring in the
capacity to remove them in time, to remove those risks are also not present. And so some of these systemic problems are the very problems that are at the heart, that are to a very large extent driving this sort of a surge in
Let me bring in the Ghana Private Road Transport Union Industrial Relations Officer Ibrahim Abbas Boro. Good afternoon to you, sir. Thanks for joining us. It's good to see you again.
I'm very happy.
Yes. Great. What I want to ask is your stake, the stake of the Private Transport Union, your stake in road safety. A lot of the time, we hear the law enforcers talk about indiscipline and sometimes ignorance in terms of the drivers or other road users. What's your take?
Well, thank you very much. The current spate of accidents is really worrying. We look at the number of accidents on our roads and nobody is happy with that. We categorize road crashes in about 3 categories, like my brother said. We have the human error, the natural cause, and we attribute the other part to some of our roads, the nature of our roads. I don't think any driver will leave home with the intention of not coming back. No driver have that intention. Most of the time, we look at the enforcement. You see, I start with enforcement because if I drive from here to Kumasi or from here to Takoradi, and I know very well that I'm not supposed to drive above 80 kilometers per hour, and should I try to drive above, I could be arrested and prosecuted anywhere. I don't think any driver will do that. Here we are. There are no proper checks to make sure you don't contravene one of these regulations. So people try to get away with it. If they have the speed guns, as we've been saying at times, and they have about 4 or 5 checks from here to Kumasi or to Takoradi, I know very well I could be arrested and prosecuted. Should I go beyond the prescribed, I won't do that. And that will also save one of the crashes on our roads. Like, we know at times some of these crashes happens where the driver, especially anybody thinks any road crashes is being caused or created by a commercial driver. I'm very happy when I heard my good friend mentioning to you that the private cars,
the statistics show that.
The statistics shows how many private vehicles have get involved in road crashes than the commercial cars. It's unfortunate.
What does that mean for you when the statistics show that fewer commercial vehicles as compared to private
Yeah,
are involved in
all
crashes?
drivers should be talked to. All drivers should listen to education. All drivers should go by the Road Traffic Regulation Act and the road signs. This is what is just unfortunate. One commercial driver will get involved in a road crash, and at times many people will have problem by losing their lives or getting injured. It's just unfortunate. Most of these accidents also
Because the stakes are higher for them.
yes,
They are carrying
yes.
a number of people.
Most of these accidents also are being caused by a private car. When the commercial car tries to salvage the situation, at times some of the nature of our roads lead him to those road crashes. So I always say all of us need to be talked to.
Okay.
All of us need to be educated to. All of us need to apply the road signs that are being erected for all of us. So commercial drivers, we are not happy with the current state of accidents. Something must be done. We are all helping make sure the roads are safe. Most of our roads are not safe. We are all helping to make sure portions that are supposed to have road signs which are not having, the highway authority or whoever is in charge of that should make sure we put all these things in place so that we minimize the road crashes.
Okay. But I went on the National Road Safety Authority website and saw the vision for Ghana to make Ghana the safest, or to let Ghana have the safest roads in Africa. A lot has been done over the years. We know that the Road Safety Authority, formerly commissioned, has been given certain powers beyond education and programs and activities to sensitize the public. We know the MTTU, it's now MTTD. They've also been given certain powers and authority. The passage of the 2012 Road Traffic Regulation in 2012 brought in clear-cut rules. You cannot be making a phone call when you are driving. Every vehicle should have, or every passenger should be wearing a seatbelt. That was mandatory. The expectation would be that these were very significant changes. And Kwame, I'm throwing this to you first. These were significant changes in the industry the expectation is that it would have brought some results, but rather we are seeing a continuous what I will call a crisis, a continuous rise in cases of crashes, deaths, injuries.
Yes, but that is not to say that the laws and changes have not made any impact.
I didn't want to say it.
Yeah, my friend just said, and based on the data too, in fact, if you were to look at the trend over time, even though the numbers appear to be on a rise, you could say for sure that there has been a certain level of stability. If you look at the number of vehicles coming on, the year to year or year on addition, there's some relative stability in the numbers, but we are not too comfortable with it. We think that there's a lot that could be done. For instance, if you look at the situation 10 years ago, the commercial vehicle contribution was somewhere around 23-25%. Today, it's less than 20%. Pedestrian contribution to the national numbers used to be somewhere 43%. Today is in and around 35-34%. Child fatalities have dropped. Whilst we continue to record some improvement in these areas, like Supo said, I think it's become obvious that we have some concerns to do with the motorcycle-related issues. But otherwise, without being too happy where we are, progress is being made. But okay. I need to make the point that everywhere across the globe, when you want to measure performance of countries in road safety management, I think there are about 3 indicators. One, you want to look to the absolute numbers, which is what we're discussing now. On the other hand, you may want to look at the fatality rates and also population risk. Given that we record 2,000 and more. Nominally, it shows that the numbers are going up, and also because the vehicular numbers are also on the rise. But in terms of fatality rates, we are in a single digit, which means that if you take every 10,000 vehicles that are exposed to these crashes, the number of deaths seeks to improve. But it's not to the point that we can be comforted, find it comforting, and requires that we do a lot more than is being done. And that's why all these changes that you alluded to have been brought on board. The police is beginning to see improvement in their own processes, the authority, and I believe quite a number of institutions within the space. But we need to confront the issues as they are. Motorcycle, I agree to a very large extent with some of the concerns raised by my colleague Obeng, except that if you pay attention to the numbers again, you notice that there are quite a lot of it happening within Greater Accra and also Ashanti. There are areas in this country that survive predominantly on motorcycle. Forget about the usage, whether for commercial or private purposes. Nonetheless,
this would be the rural areas.
Yes. Nonetheless, their contribution to these incidents are not as one would have expected. To my mind, their approach, their level of discipline cannot be compared to these populated, urbanized environments, the Accra Kumasi. Trust me, if motor riders in Accra, regardless of the purpose of their use, were to obey traffic signals, put on their crash helmet, abide by the rules as we expect of them, maybe the numbers will not look that bad as they appear. However, in Accra, Kumasi, where you'd expect that we are exposed to knowledge, exposed to information, these risk factors, and would do what is right, regardless again of the constraints of the system that we all concede to, the public transportation difficulties. If the guy turns at the red light and decides to stop, like all vehicles do, he's on his helmet, he's not impeding pedestrian use because he's ignoring the signals, a lot more would change. Okay. It goes down to the enforcement issues and the attitude and these traces of indiscipline. Okay. A few weeks ago, I was in Sunyani, for instance, and the attitude is quite different. I mean, I could not count of more incidents where motor riders got to the few traffic signals and decided to drive against traffic.
It's good that you mentioned the enforcement, and I would like to bring in Superintendent and find out from the experience. Is it that there's a special breed of citizens in the Ashanti and Greater Accra regions as compared to the Sunyanes and what have you, where indeed if you travel to the rural areas, you see that the use of the motorbikes, the speed is obviously not the same as the kind of speed you see in Accra, and a few things crossing, jumping red lights and all of that. But Superintendent, as you mull over that, I want to go for a quick break. When we come back, I'll give you that opportunity. This is Good Afternoon, Ghana. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Amen.
The world has seen a lot of evolution in recent times. Global network facilitated by trade continues to grow stronger and forge nations closer together.
On International Trade Focus, we'll share with you the current industry, tech and commercial avenues turning the world's trade wheel. This is your gateway to international business connections and trading events. Get the inside views, vital information, trends and analysis on emerging trade giants in Ghana and beyond. International Trade Focus, the global television trade showcase, transcending barriers in creativity and innovation. Join me, Anna Spiel, as I give you a whole menu of international trade activities. International Trade Focus, your timely business hub. International Trade Focus is brought to you by GO, ADB, Pediatric Valley Resort and Public Elegance.
Are you tired as a consumer in Ghana when it comes to issues that confront you as a consumer? Worry no more. Kofi Capito, I'm here to give you the information, all that you need to make sure that your right is protected as a consumer. We have too many laws and agencies that should protect the right of the consumer. I'm here to give you the information that will help and assist you to get goods and services delivered to you without any worries. Watch the Capito Show on Metro TV.
Welcome back to Good Afternoon Ghana. We're having a conversation about road carnage in Ghana. Just before the break, I was trying to engage Superintendent Alexander Obeng on an interesting bit that Kwame raised, which, Superintendent, from your statistics we can see. I just want to maybe pad the question a little more. When you look at the breakdown, total number of cases recorded, you look at Accra, that's 2009, if I can see correctly. This is for 2021, January to June. You look at Ashanti region, it's 1,826, while all the other regions are in the hundreds and the tens. If you come to the specific case of motor bicycles, Greater Accra has 886 and Ashanti has 586. Clearly, these two regions tell a story.
And I think that has been the trend all these years because, like I said, numbers count, and traffic mix is also very critical, and traffic congestion among other, and nodality, the kind of jurisdiction and the road environment you are looking at, and it plays a major role in determining where incidents are likely to occur, among others. And it's true, and I mentioned it, the pronounced use of vehicles. If you look at how vehicles are registered and where vehicles are owned and where vehicles are applied, and you observe that in the southern third, in Greater Accra, and to the western side, a lot of, on the N1 and all that, you see a lot of vehicles either owned there or being used there. And in the central corridor, using at the N6, the eastern region, Ashanti region, and it begins to dissipate as you proceed to the northern frontier. And obviously, vehicular population is more, is concentrated in the southern third. In Accra, Greater Accra, you have about almost 40% of all vehicles registered residing here. And so, obviously, within the data, where more vehicles are, you expect more conflict. And that's why you see more incident, associated deaths and injuries.
Okay.
And it follows like that. And therefore, not much changes. I haven't seen much changing with the data I have. Even and I don't want to mention towns. If you look at the regions and you look at motorcycle-related deaths, even 40 persons died. Mm-hmm. You see, and it's not looking good. Formerly, it wasn't like that. And I'm looking at the trend that in the past, in Ghana, of 100 deaths, you could only attribute 10 to 60. Now it's about 47. And I'm saying this is across. You see, if you look at all the 17, Ghana police, we have our jurisdiction 17 for purposes of effective policing and traffic enforcement. 17 regions. And you see that depending on how high vehicular population is, you begin to see high incidents and associated death and injury. And that is what is playing out. And we should be looking at it in that context.
I think you are about to talk about the way forward.
What do you mean?
You're about to talk about the way forward.
Yeah.
So that's the question for everybody. I'll give everybody 2 minutes on that.
Already I've mentioned
forward?
some.
Yes.
Because when I looked at the road environment, that some of the road network have to be dualized. We cannot run away from it. We also need to have hands on motorcycle. The policy must change. We must look at it.
To what?
It doesn't reside with me. And I think it is tried that solution lies elsewhere. The country must sit and look at the policy again, because the policy was crafted and incorporated in the law. Same has to be taken as a second, because we have operated with it since 2012. We need to do evaluation, isn't it? And therefore, I posit that. Again, I think driver training is very important, and particularly high-risk commercial drivers. And of course, removal of obstructions. People are getting killed, and we must take a second look at our towing system. You see, it should not be lying fallow. We have to look at it. And then the kind of investment that government wants to put in terms of automating traffic enforcement. We need to have hands-on and focus on it to change, because the road seems to be very free. The deterrence is not all that stringent, because if it is deployed to sea with human eye, there's likelihood that police cannot be deployed everywhere, and drivers can carry on with their whatever. And therefore, automating it and digitalizing traffic enforcement cannot be in the distant millennia. In computerizing it, finally, I think that sensitization in the meantime and robust enforcement deployment alongside will go a very long way in the meantime to increase sense of detection, apprehension, as we have done between January to June, and have arrested over 1,900, and same have been convicted at the various motor courts across the country.
Also interesting is the towing that you talk about. And just before you talk about the way forward, or shall I not go there? It's become difficult because indeed broken down vehicles were identified as a major cause. The towing levy there was an attempt to impose it. There was a kickback and all that. That's been mentioned as part of the solutions. Kwame, I'll give you 2 minutes on that in terms of the way forward, and maybe touch a bit on the towing.
Yes, I think we've had our own lessons on that bit. Part of the concerns we've had over time is the culture of resistance. Each time you think of improving upon the system, because we are too fond and used to a certain pattern of life, it's always the case that you have people massing up to exercise one level of resistance or the other. But I think going around the table...
But the resistance may be genuine. People are thinking about their pockets. It's expensive.
We could have that discussion. But I mean, coming around the table, I mean, it's become very obvious that it was such a good idea. Those who showed a bit of resistance are beginning to eat back their words and beginning to ask for everything, and they need to repackage and possibly come back, because whether you like it or not, we live with the problems, and we haven't taken any significant step forward trying to deal with it. But on the whole, I mean, we all have to scale up our efforts, and going forward, my expectation is to have a bit of support from the media. which is to begin to demand more accountability from all of us. Without that, I mean, key stakeholder institutions will always find pleasure in giving one excuse or the other. But when the media begins to demand responsibility from the authority, the police, the DVLA, the road agencies, including our friends in the transport sector, we'll begin to take our jobs serious and begin to do things differently, which will impact on the numbers going forward.
With that said, you know what to expect. Mr. Morrow, yes, I'll give you the final word.
Give me about 5 minutes.
I can do 3 minutes.
About the towing, we resisted to that because they tried to impose it on us. You see, gone are the ancient days that authorities or those in authorities will just sit somewhere and design something, impose on us. These days, professional driver says no. Less dialogue. I mean, get in touch with us, bring your ideas, we'll bring our ideas, and finally, the towing, we are not saying is bad. It's very good when the vehicle breaks down and is being told to salvage any road crash. Why not?
But there should be dialogue.
There should be dialogue.
But to the broader question of road safety going forward,
it says something that yes, they have accepted some of our grievances that we put across. The only grievances we put was let's sit down and dialogue and bring our ideas. We also bring our ideas. When we implement it, we all live happily. One example is the current National Road Safety Authority. They sat with us and we agreed that yes, in our statutory books, the LI 2180, it is clearly written somewhere you are not supposed to continuously drive more than 4 hours. You need to rest. So we all came together. We agreed there should be 2 drivers in all vehicles which are traveling more than 4 hours. We all happily agreed to that. You see, so we played with my brother.
How about matters of indiscipline where drivers
indiscipline, if you ask me on this media, I would say most of the indisciplined drivers are the private-owned drivers. I've earlier told you that these problems come from drivers, not only professional commercial drivers.
Sure.
So if I sit here representing my people and you ask about indiscipline, I will say all drivers.
All drivers,
all drivers. We should all change our attitude and make sure the roads are safe for all of us.
Very well. It's a holistic approach towards the solution. Just quick messages.
My last word is, we have just introduced electronic ticketing, which contains vital information of our clients. If you are traveling, currently nobody knows where we are coming from.
What we'll do is that the news team will grab you for a quick interview on that.
I want to say this to you. So the public should help us patronize this ticketing, which will contain a relative of you. Should any unexpected happens, we can get in touch with any of
Just a quick
relatives. Message
from Kweku in Koforidua. He says, please, may I know why the traffic lights in the city is not working and which institution is to fix that? I can't read any more messages, but I'm going to apologize for that. I'm grateful to you, gentlemen, for joining me on the show. Thank you also for watching and sending your messages at home. This has been Good Afternoon, Ghana. I'm Francisca Kakwa.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Metro TV and also on